In a short stretch of time from the mid-90s to the early 2000s, a relatively small group of people started playing around with this thing called the World Wide Web. They had the audacity to think they just might change the world. This project introduces you to the OG players from those hallowed days and lets them tell you what it was like and how you should have been there. Episode 20, take 2. We just had a fairly major glitch, but today we're talking to the boys from Woodbridge, Mike, Richard, and Jerry. This is going to be incredible. Ritesh, that's never happened before.
I know. I don't know what happened there. I think it was the 27,000 tabs you had open on Chrome.
I'm fairly confident. I'm fairly confident that was the situation. That was kind of special. It was like a 7-minute delay.
I know. That's all good. You know, we've still got 46 minutes to hang out with these guys. So exactly. I'm sure it'll be great. So
yeah, this is going to be awesome. So anyway, let me get some housekeeping out of the way.
Yeah, let's get that going.
So go to if you want to see past episodes, you want to see upcoming guests, or if you've got someone who you think should be on here, some OG player you want to feature on the show, let us know. Go to youshoulda.com. You can also tag Ritesh or I. Our handles are on the screen there. If you are watching and want to heckle, that's what the comments are there for. So stop in, say hi, let these boys know what's going on. And finally, go to YouTube, to our YouTube channel, subscribe. Go to youshoulda.com, click on the YouTube link, subscribe. We're like one user away from a vanity URL, so just do it. Come on.
It's been so long. We've had so many episodes, and we're just one person away from becoming an influencer. So
exactly. So let's do this. Let's bring these guys on. We got a lot of guys, got a lot of memories to get to.
Yeah.
Mike Benyo, Jerry Newmark,
Richard Harris. There he is,
sir.
How are you boys doing? Benyo, how are things?
Things were good up until about 5 minutes ago. So, Mr. Shannon, okay, I know that technology has never been your friend, okay?
I'm a technologist.
But that's what Mr. Patel is here. He's supposed to be our token techie guy, right? So,
yeah.
Listen, between Richard, Jerry, and I, we know a couple of guys in Bangalore, okay? If you want, all right, we're more than happy to help out for a reasonable rate and get you guys back up to snuff, all right? So just let us know. I mean, right, Jerry? I mean, we could take care of this.
But doesn't this take you back? I mean, the whole intent of this show is to take you back to those 1.0 days in the late 90s. So surely this must bring back some memory of launching a site and nothing working for the first 8 minutes, right?
I'm sorry, but those of us in the Woodbridge office never experienced that.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Back me up. Our technology was flawless.
Okay? Oh, yeah. We should definitely, you know what, we should hunt down the DirecTV client now.
Ouch.
We delivered exactly what we said we would, exactly what we said we would.
Yeah. I like the way Jerry said that. Say that again, Jerry.
The fact that they insisted on getting it a month early, yeah, that was their problem.
That was our motto. That was our motto.
Yeah.
Clients. That's your problem.
Yeah. Yeah, our motto, it's the client's fault.
Yeah.
we had nothing to do with this. You know, most of the times that was true.
I think we should go and get these guys to introduce themselves and say hello, right? Even though people may know them. So who do we want to start with? Harris, Benyo, or Newmark? Which one do you think? Benyo.
Benyo.
There you go.
Those of you who are not familiar with my extensive body of work, I am Mike Benyo. I was previously coordinator person and janitor at the Woodbridge office. Woodbridge, in case you don't know, is located in the country of New Jersey. And it's not that we have a chip on our shoulder or an inferiority complex, but again, we were always the wayward sons of the agency organization, which we'll go into more depth, I'm sure, later on. But again, you know, I think that Kyle and Ritesh have been doing a great job with this program up to this point. And unfortunately, they've now damaged their reputation completely by inviting us on this program. So with that, happy to be here.
Thank you. Harris.
Jerry.
Oh, Jerry. No. Jerry. Oh, Newmark. Okay, there we go.
We're going alphabetical order, except so I'm Jerry Newmark. I was at one point the head of technology in in the agency.com Woodbridge office. I was also the head of creative at one point in that same office.
Fantastic. What are you up to these days?
Working at Hero Digital, along with a lot of other ex-agency Woodbridge miscreants like Pete Brown.
That's all. Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Mr. Harris.
Hi there, Richard Harris, longtime listener, first-time caller. Also was everything from a technical director to senior PM to VP of operations. And currently I'm the head of technology for Tough Mudder.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, I do remember the first time I met Mr. Harris in his lovely palatial office in Woodbridge, and it was to define a process that he wanted to put together. And I just remember thinking in the back of my head, this guy must be absolutely out of his mind if he's going to think that the New York office is ever going to adopt this process.
Yeah.
But I didn't say it out loud. I was very polite.
You were very polite. That's good.
Yes. So
I had that big office with 2 desks, one of which was empty. So anyone visiting from New York always sat with me.
that's right. That's right.
And then got an earful.
Awesome. Well, let's go back before then. So as we like to say, where we like to start is at the beginning, and with you guys, we get to start twice. But what I would love to hear is just from each of you, kind of your origin story. You know, how did you discover the internet? Like, what was happening that led you to be part of, you know, the company that ultimately got acquired by agency.com, or, you know, merged with, became part of agency.com? Like, what were all of your genesis stories? Who wants to go first?
Well, I guess since I was the first one at the precursor, the company that ended up as part of agency. So that was a company called Jayak.
Right.
I think by the time of the acquisition, the consulting group had spun off to be Quadris.
Quadris, that's right.
Quadris Consulting, right?
Wow, I forgot that name. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what year was that, Jerry? When did you start at Jayak?
I started at Jayak in 1983.
Wow.
So CompuServe, Prodigy, what was it?
We were on the internet back then. We had a client that had connectivity, and we had email addresses.
Wow. In 1983, that's a staggering.
CP Bang addresses.
Oh, right. I remember those.
Yeah, we were doing work for a company. Yeah, it seems like we've been doing work in the financial sector like since day one. That was we were doing has a system called, they were banking terminals for the teller and for the platform guys. So little like 4-inch or 6-inch CRT screens.
Yeah.
We were working on Unix back then. We had a Fortune desktop Unix boxes.
Oh my God.
So we were doing all this stuff. The company was building, as a result of that client, we ended up with a product that was a screen builder, an input form builder. And so we were doing like internet-ish kind of stuff way before anybody knew about it, before the web.
You were doing interactive media. Did you have a moment, because you were there so early? You were there kind of a decade before, you know, a lot of the stuff we're talking about. Did you have a moment where you realized that this connectivity was going to change the game?
After it happened, I mean,
well,
I remember sometime in the early to mid '90s. I can't remember the exact timing, but we started hearing these things about the web and websites and whatever, and I pushed around a little bit. And I remember talking to the principals of the company and a couple of senior tech guys, and who were kind of like, so what is all this stuff? And I said, it's CICS with a party dress on.
Oh, look at that.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it was. Wow, that's great.
You and I had one of those conversations.
So
where,
this was Jayak from day one, was it? 1983, Jerry, Jayak?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay. And where were you based? Where was it? Where was the office? Was it in Woodbridge?
So initially, the office was at 919 3rd when I joined. It was, I
Oh,
think,
New
the
York.
third
Okay.
location.
Yeah.
But doing consulting work, we were a lot of times we were at the client site.
Okay.
Oh,
Amazing.
yeah.
So-
How about you other guys? How did
Oh.
it begin for Richard or Benyo?
I also joined Jayak in 1987, right out of college. Benyo joined 2 weeks later.
Wow.
Not right out of
I
college.
was just going to say, did you bring him with you? 'Cause, yeah.
And as Jerry said, there was a product part of the company that built these form builders, and then there was the consultants. And I spent 2 weeks on the product side, and then was immediately shipped out to Jersey to work with Jerry and a whole bunch of other consultants. And then was brought back to the product side, which at that point they had moved to 116 John Street.
Oh, downtown, right. Yeah.
To work on that form builder. And one of the things that I was tasked to do was make it work for the web.
Ah. And what year was that? That was 93, 94?
92, 93.
Wow. So
And I said,
web.
what web?
Yeah.
So the product worked on Windows and Unix, and wanted to work for web browsers. So
what was the web browser in 92?
Mosaic.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It had just it wasn't it was a university project, right?
Yeah.
They didn't even have an M as a logo yet. They didn't get to the alphabet.
Well, this was so early that most of the browsers people used were text-based. They weren't even graphical. So anyone who remembers links and those kinds of things.
Gosh. Yeah.
We had to try to make our product work even under those types of browsers.
Right. And wasn't it that there was a bracket around a hyperlink, and then you would sort of arrow down to the hyperlinks? You would arrow around the hyperlinks?
Yeah. So, and it was supposed to be that some form you would design to work under Windows, you should be able, with very little modification, just use it on a web server, and it would magically work in your browser.
Right.
That was the goal. And I remember having those conversations with Jerry, where he would say, "Oh, it's mainframes all over again."
Right. Yeah. Because you're logging into some other system through a window, right?
At the time, everything was client server. Everything, like, a lot of work was done on your computer, your client computer, and a lot of work was done on the server.
Yeah.
And Jerry's like, but now everything's back on the server. It's like old mainframe days, because I can do this.
Yeah, exactly. It all cycles around, right?
Right. So yeah, that was my initial.
Now, did you see the web as just a pain in the ass, like, not as good as the other environments you were working in, or did you have any sort of thing where you thought, oh, this is actually going to change things or be different?
Definitely the former.
Really?
I mean, it changed things at the margins. Like, I could see how this would be, easier to do certain things, but I didn't think it would, change commerce or.
Right.
There was no Amazon.
Right.
It wasn't until Amazon came out, and I'm like, oh, people can sell things too.
Right.
It wasn't just like some new publishing platform.
Hey, now, careful. I started out with a magazine, so, you're starting to step on my territory here.
But that's why Harris is saying it was nothing.
Yeah.
It was going to change some things, but not everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
How about you, Benyo? What was your magic moment? So it sounds like you were there way early too. We thought we were early being there in 94. You're like, yeah, I was there a decade earlier.
I love the way you say that, back in 94, like we're ancient dinosaurs. Well, which
we are.
Yeah, come on. That's why we're doing this.
It's true. So we don't forget, right?
Exactly.
but like Jerry and Richard, I started out with a JIAC, of course, doing some fundamental development work over at AT&T. We spent a lot of time at AT&T. But before I go any further, which part of the show is when we do the auction? Is that coming up, or because Kyle told me this is going to be the next best thing since eBay? So that's
toward the tail end of the show.
It's near the end. Yeah, we're going to auction off the bookcase
because
that's in the back.
Have paraphernalia. Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow. Plug, all right. So,
even with the phone number on it. Look at that.
Exactly. All right.
Should we call the number now?
Yeah, we should call the number.
Try calling that number.
Yeah.
So, frankly, guys, I've got some merch I need to unload. Really, got to get rid of this stuff.
I like it.
And not just JIAC Management Consulting.
That's right. We were ahead of the game, right? But I mean, we looked at it. At least I looked at it from a technology perspective, and we weren't, well versed in this creative stuff. Right? We didn't see how that came into us. That was just, something that you had to do. But the technology was the real heart of it. And we entered into it thinking about technology will rule the internet, and creative, it's just a byproduct. So we, those of us from the tech side, looked at it very differently, approached it a little bit differently, and probably were a little bit slower to realize what the impact was going to be as a result of that.
Yeah, it sounds like it was just like, this is just yet another environment that we're doing the same thing we were doing in, right? So. And what was your role? Were you developing back then? What was your role, Mike?
I basically have no technical skills whatsoever. So, but the one skill I do have is I can talk to tech folks and I can talk to business folks. So mostly I was doing project management, account management, organization, stuff like that, and trying to make sure nobody caught on to the fact that I didn't really know anything.
Yeah, well, I think that was one of the common denominators of that whole era was nobody knew anything, and we were all just pretending like we sort of did.
Yeah, Jerry still brings up the fact that I would go out and promise something to a client and come back and say, "Sure, we can do it," and then look at me like I was from Mars. Right? You said what?
We're going to stream audio on the internet.
So
Exactly.
wait, you don't do that anymore?
I don't do that anymore. That's a scary thought, right, Benyo?
No one else did know anything though. So
that's right.
One of my favorite sayings is, "In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king."
Exactly.
We may have only had one eye, but we looked like geniuses to everyone else.
Yeah.
So here you guys are at JIAC. You're hanging around. You're doing development work for financial services. It's how did it occur that you ended up being acquired and then acquired? I think it sounded like you were acquired and then acquired again. Is that right, Benyo?
More or less, yeah. I mean, we did a conversion from JIAC to Quadras. Actually, Quadras broke away from JIAC. There is this well-known intelligentsia individual in the industry called Larry Krakauer, who had a concept about, we can do this better if we do it ourselves. And so he gathered together a few of us who were a little bit more entrepreneurial, perhaps, than the founders of JIAC wanted to be at that stage. And we branched off on our own. Then we came under the attention of a rather large advertising agency called Omnicom, who was looking to do a roll-up. You may have heard some of this story before. What were we, Kyle? Were we like 7 companies that rolled up?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, it was Agency, Eagle River.
Yep.
Quadras.
The Boston Group. What were they called?
Interactive Solutions.
Yeah.
Online Magic.
A Spiral Media.
Yes.
Right? Spiral Media. And then iTraffic toward the end. Yep.
Yeah.
So most of those organizations were more creative focused. I mean, they had more of an interest on that side of the equation. We were kind of the token tech guys because I think the thought process was this is mostly going to be driven by creative and design. But you know what? It wouldn't hurt to have some tech skills under our belt as well. And that's when we sort of got introduced. We came in as representing, the hardware side of things.
Yeah. Well, we, creative was swell and all, but pretty quickly, folks like British Airways were like, we want to sell tickets, or, Sirius Satellite Radio was, we want to stream music. So we needed some people that could figure that crap out. Man.
So here you guys are. You get Quadras going, and then what happens next, Harris? Were you part of the Quadris folks? Did you?
I came back to the consulting side a couple of months before the spin-off of Quadris. And then I think the Interactive Solutions agency happened, I don't know, maybe 6 months later.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And then
how did that change things? What was that like?
Well, you mean when we got done looking at each other?
Yeah.
Asking, wait, so we work for a bunch of creative people now? And they think we're going to help them do what? Which lasted quite a while.
Exactly.
Right. Then it became a lot more fun. Then it was, this is an opportunity. We get to work on a far wider variety of projects. How to get introduced to all the people in New York, because I was the closest office. We were kind of an independent office and kind of not an independent office.
Yeah.
So Quadris was in two places, Boston and New York. Is that what it was?
And the Boston folks immediately rolled up into the Interactive Solutions Boston, and they became agency.com Boston.
Agency.com Boston, right? Okay.
But we were, I think, administratively rolled up into New York, but we had a separate office and separate culture and separate, staff, etc. And then some of us, like myself, started working in both offices. But that was the initial confusion and concern.
Yeah. I distinctly remember, I think it was first or second time I came to the Woodbridge office, just being impressed with how many machines you had and how well organized they were. Like ours were just, wires everywhere. And, yours, you had good, powerful machines that were well organized and well taken care of. And I had never seen that before.
In one of our original shows, we had Scott Major on talking about TapeNet and how they taped Ethernet wires all over the office, so.
Yeah. I think you guys came in later than TapeNet. You never saw any of that, did you? TapeNet? No.
No, I think we were at 665 Broadway by the time these guys came along. So yeah.
So let me show something here.
Oh my God.
There are some memories packed up here. Now, some good agency.com branding. So wearing one for the team there. This is like if you ever watch Hot Ones, they always have that, name that Graham, where they're talking about people's Instagram photos. Like, what do you remember from this, Mike? Was this at a ball game?
Yeah, this was Yankee Stadium. This was a class outing. Team spirit and all that sort of stuff. We went out. Good time was had by all. But I want to draw your attention to my sunglasses, all right? Because I was obviously at the peak of my coolness at this particular juncture.
I think the sunglasses combined with that particular mustache really, really impressively something.
Did he have Tom Selleck shorts on, I wonder?
I was going to say Colombian drug lord.
Yeah, he does look like Pablo Escobar.
He does, yeah. This is now I know how they funded Quadris Consulting and got it going, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now we do have a picture of Richard here. Oh,
sorry. Oh, wait.
Sorry, here we go. There you go.
Who's that?
Huh?
Is that you, Harris?
That
me. Is you. Look at that.
Look at that.
Slightly more hair?
Yeah, slightly more hair. But not to be left out.
Oh.
Come on. Ever the romantic.
Jerry, look at that.
Any recollections of this, Jerry?
Not
no.
Really.
I don't blame you, Jerry. Jerry, I would want to forget this picture as well, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And look, Megan. Huh?
Oh, Megan. The neighbor.
Some good old-fashioned pics.
Barbara.
Barb.
And Mary.
Was that Herbert? A few slides back?
We should actually go back to the Herbert one for a second.
A couple slides back.
One.
Yep.
This is a momentous event in agency history taking place here and recorded for posterity. So just really quick anecdote, right? This was around 2000 or so. And if you guys remember, we were going through some rough times right around then. Sales were down, business was down, people were nervous, a lot of activity a lot of anxiety, let's put it that way.
Mhm.
So of course, we were doing our best out in Woodbridge, brainstorming, trying to come up with solutions, trying to find a way to fight our way out of this downturn. And Herbert, the gentleman standing, was our creative director at the time, a fine German gentleman. And we've been batting it around for about an hour or so, and just banging our heads against the wall. We didn't have any really good solutions. And finally, at one point, Herbert bangs the desk, stands up, and says, "I have the answer. I have the solution." And of course, we're all sitting raptly listening to him, trying to hear what font of wisdom is going to come out. What we need are more clients. That is the problem. We need more clients.
It's actually quite brilliant.
I think it's brilliant too. Look
Did
at
it
that.
work?
And then they waited for me to stop my explosion, followed by the followed by the and.
Yeah.
There was no and.
There was no end.
So who were the big clients for you in New Jersey? There was obviously DirecTV, I remember when I first joined. That was the sort of a large client that you were working with. Who else were you working with out of that office?
There was a large was it GM Financial?
Yep. GM Financial Services.
In Pennsylvania. At one point we had to second like a dozen people out there in their offices just to finish that work.
Wow. You guys were used to that, right? Because you did a lot of that co-locating stuff before, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
What was
when did the creative start coming in then? When did we start? I think Megan was a creative that was working with you guys.
Well, I mean, technically, I don't know if you remember this, Kyle. Soon after all these companies rolled up, you and Andy Hobsbawm, wanted to have a global creative summit in New York, 2-day summit, and you insisted that every office had to send someone. But we didn't have a creative group, and you said no, every office has to send someone. So I went.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. That's when I first met Andy, and every office sent at least one or two people. And the homework assignment was to talk about some creative solution to our business problem.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else was showing great designs, whatever. And I told this story about how on 15 minutes notice, I had to explain really technical network diagrams to people at AT&T, and we had lunch. So I took all the paper plates from lunch and I wrote names of the systems, and I had people walk around.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Interacting. I didn't really have a lot of comment with the creative people, but the following morning I show up, and of course I'm late as usual. Everyone's there, and you're admonishing everyone else. And I wasn't sure about what, and I said, "I'm sorry for being late." And you said, "No, that's okay. I'm just admonishing all these creative talent in the company because they were shown up by the tech guy yesterday."
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Because that was one of my big things was, the problem with the word creative is it sort of gets relegated to like it's just the pixel pushers. And my whole thing was, there's the creative product, which is like Photoshop stuff, but then there's the creative process, and anyone can be creative. So that for me, I remember that distinctly because you actually had a really creative
way of doing something.
And then the rest of that day, all the other creative people who really didn't want anything to do with me, they were palling around and asking me more questions about what I do and etc. And then years later, I was in the London office, and I was running operations in London, and they had a big issue with people entering their time. So I did that with the plates and had them act out how time works, and it was a great success. And Andy came by a week later and say, "Is it true you got everyone to enter the time? How'd you do that?" And I just said, "Remember the paper plates?" He says, "Yes, I do." I go, "Again."
It worked a second time. That's awesome. That's awesome. Benyo, was there a shift in culture in the Woodbridge office? Like, did it evolve, or like talk about like what was that transition like as the relationship got more mature?
There was a transition, but it was a very gradual one. And nothing really much changed until we started importing some, excuse the expression, creative folks like Megan, like Herbert, a couple of other folks like that. And we started to have a bit of a core of creative skill set and creative, if I can say that, mentality in the office. That started changing things, as I said, slowly. Because prior to that, our creative representation was Jerry and Richard. So
right.
Which is a little scary in retrospect. But the transition, we never lost our technical, fundamentals. That was still a part of us. We still approach things. The designs that came out of the Woodbridge office were very functional, right? It wasn't that we were pushing the envelope. We were more interested in functionality, making sure things work, easy to use, that sort of thing. So we had a little bit of an aesthetic that came out of Woodbridge that, again, was very functionally oriented, very straight to the point. As Jerry said, we did a lot of financial services types of applications. So that carried through. But we did change our attitude, and we actually started smiling a little bit every once in a while. So embrace the chaos that is creativity.
Yeah.
Who was the QA person, Jerry, that was working there? They used to give us all hell.
Oh, Pete Brown.
Pete Brown. There you go.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I'm still working with.
Do you still work with Pete?
Yes, he's retiring shortly.
Oh,
wow. But yeah, Pete. So Pete started 6 months after I did at Jayak. And I think over time, we collectively shared an office for about 20 years at various different, in many different locations. So yeah, Pete, so that was like a concept that was alien to the culture we joined.
It was. Yeah,
right?
project management was,
Oh, quality assurance even. Just
quality assurance. Yeah, first project management, we no need to get it done, and then whether or not it works or not.
Yeah, you want me to test it before we launch it? What's wrong with you?
In an order? Yeah. What do you like? What do you remember from those times where that transition happened? Like, did it change how you did what you did, or did you just put on blinders and do your work?
Initially, there was really not much change. But then for the period of time where I was heading, how was I the first Woodbridge creative director? The mandate came down that we wouldn't be recognized as our own office until we had creative. Right, those were the rules.
Whose bright idea was that, Kyle?
So it was like, and so we had spent, 6 months having the creative team in New York attempt to hire creatives for us, and that didn't work. We hired exactly 0.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, screw it, we're going to take over the hiring. Richard and I got together on this one, as I recall, and told Benyo what we were going to do.
Wow.
So since I had a ponytail and an earring at the time, I became the creative director.
Prerequisites. Yeah, that's good. That's solid. You could at least dress the part.
Right. So I started. Now we still had to pass all the candidates through whoever was it. Chris Needham.
Chris Needham. He was the creative guy in New York. Yeah, he. I remember he would have to vet the creatives, right?
But we started hiring a creative staff, and actually for me it was the process of doing the interviews and looking at people's portfolios and understanding their backgrounds that kind of got me like a little bit more understanding of what the process was,
of what the skill was, what the process was, that sort of thing. Oh, that's interesting. Did that change the way you work at all, or did it just change how you work with creatives?
Yes.
Like you understood the somewhat method to the madness.
Right.
No, that's cool. That's really interesting. What were some projects you worked on that you felt like were kind of a super big deal to you, or were game changers, or like, holy crap, we got to do that?
No, they didn't do any of those in Woodbridge.
No.
Go on, Benyo. I'm sure you have a couple of projects.
Anything ring true for you, Benyo? Just stuff that was like
that comment. Jeez.
yeah,
The interesting thing, I think, part of our role, and you mentioned DirecTV, and British Airways were a big part of that as well. But our role really was to support everybody else. Our role was after the creative work is done, after you spent a day or two on creative, then you would pull us in, right, and we would make the magic actually happen, make it come out. So in a way, we were part of almost every major project. There weren't a lot that were Woodbridge specific, other than some legacy projects that we carried over, like I said, like DirecTV. So all of those projects, we could take a little bit of pride in having participated in the majority of them to a large extent.
Harris, what about you? Anything you remember working on?
Well, I was thinking, listening to Jerry, that my exposure to all the creative and strategy people was similar, but the reverse direction. I started spending a lot of time in New York managing projects, so I had to learn what an information architect was.
Oh, right.
What are the strategy? Remember, we had a whole strategy group.
Yeah,
strategy group. Bruce Repham, right?
Bruce, they do anything other than just write documents, right? And site builders, and we're learning what a designer does versus a creative director, and who to go where. So that was a huge introduction. Like photography, had never done photo shoots before, right? So I was just kind of thrown into the deep end, basically in the New York office, and learned how to corral all the scurrying rabbits that were required for a large corporate website build.
That was the art. Is trying to bring all of those people together, right?
Yeah.
Right. It was this at the time that there really wasn't a lot of process.
No.
Everyone did it a little bit differently. Yeah. We were growing so fast. There was big resource issues.
Yeah.
I need 5 hours from Joe next week, and all of these things we were trying to figure out and trying to get work done at the same time. So that's all of my memories are all about things like that.
Did you feel you ever got to the point where you kind of mastered it or cracked the code? Like what shifted as you sort of figured out who all these players were?
I think an important lesson, and it might have been Megan, who was the creative director on one of my first projects in New York, who gave me this insight, which is all these creative people that I thought were annoying.
Yeah.
That they just want to do their best work.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't even have to be what gets approved, whatever. They feel like they have a lot of pride in their work, no matter how talented they are or whether it's something the client's going to want. And whereas I was getting annoyed that this is not what we asked for, I had to completely reorient my thinking. And the other thing is, as tech people, it's either right or wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Very binary. Right. Yeah.
Correct. So dealing with client feedback, I just don't like, it's not friendly enough.
Yeah, my wife doesn't like that green, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Which is what they really mean. Right? Yeah. You make the green darker, and now all of a sudden it's friendlier.
Yeah.
Right. So I still to this day take away a lot of those lessons where I was just, we all came from a very black and white kind of background.
Right.
You learn about what motivates different kinds of people, how to get them all rowing in the same direction, which is a management challenge. I think I'm a far better manager of people now than I was back then, just because I was forced to learn how to manage people completely different than myself.
Yeah. You were forced to empathize enough to understand, wait, why do they act like this, right? Yeah, because I guess that's true. You can't manage them if you actually don't get where they're coming from and what motivates them, right? So that's interesting. Huh. Fascinating.
And most people think, I've done that work, so I know how to manage it. And that they're probably right. It's easier to manage something you've done yourself, but managing people where you couldn't do their job, it's a whole different level. And until 2000 or 99, whenever that was, I couldn't have.
Yeah. But it's funny because there were also roles, because I came in from a tech background as well, and I would be like, what the heck's a site builder? Like,
Yes.
what do they do?
Right.
So some of those roles were foreign as well, I think, and we were creating roles based on jobs that were being created. We were creating the job and then the role, right?
Yeah.
Like, we need somebody to now do front. Now, what are they called now? Front end developers, I think.
Yeah. Front end and back end. Well, but it was also the kind of thing. I mean, we experimented, all sorts of permutations of, do you keep all the technical folks together, or do you intermingle them? Do you separate account and project management from delivery, basically, from the folks doing creative and tech? And we ultimately came to it, at that time, it worked best to intermingle them, but that was incredibly complicated and really hard to manage, because you could get people on a team to build relationships on the team, but then you would lose all the technical team building. So we were constantly sort of oscillating back and forth between, specific job role and cross-functional teams, and like, what's the balance of those? Like, Mike, I mean, you ran that office. How did you manage that as those different disciplines came in?
Well, I'm only now coming off the Xanax prescription. It was a challenge.
He did whatever Harris told him, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That made me successful. But, to your point, Kyle, one analogy I like is salad dressing. So oil and vinegar. So they don't really mix, but you got to keep shaking. You got to keep shaking it up, all right, putting the two teams together. And as long as you keep doing that, you've got a really good result. So I think we had, we used to use the term creative friction. The fact that we had different points of view, different personalities, all sort of bubbling together, I think was part of what made us great. And frankly, we were great. We did amazing work, amazing talent.
Groundbreaking work, Mike.
Really
I mean, some of the work we developed. I mean, I still point to Sirius Satellite Radio. How the heck did we able to get a music streaming platform up and running before Windows Player was even around, right?
Yep, exactly. And there was also, I mean, Richard, you kind of hit on it. I feel like there was a mutual respect. I think there was the initial friction, like, who are these people? I don't understand them. But then, like, once we sort of got, everyone wanted to do excellent work. They just did different excellent work. And I think there was a mutual respect and a genuine curiosity to do good work. And a lot of times that meant you had to sort of shake the salad dressing together, right? I think it was a forced function.
Yeah, and in Woodbridge, we eventually went to let's see people randomly, almost.
Really?
Almost randomly. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
When we expanded the office in Woodbridge, we purposely did not keep the creative people all in one side of the office and people and the copywriters. We had 3 or 4 cubicles all in a pod, and there'd be, a creative director, a copywriter, a site builder, and a programmer, or something like that.
Yeah.
Not everyone was a big fan of that.
Right.
But I think Jerry and I for sure definitely thought that was the way to go, and we kind of forced the issue.
Yeah.
And that's something I still would recommend. People.
I'm still thinking about it.
Well, also the
I'll
same.
come around.
What did you remember that, Jerry?
Key there.
What's that?
The game room was key to integrating.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Because geeks in general, like, could all get around the game, right?
Yeah. Between the hockey game and the Tony Hawk.
That was good. Did you guys have a big Doom thing happen in your offices ever?
Not so much.
I don't recall.
Yeah, we had one in New York where we were playing so much Doom that I think we blew out an average of 2 keyboards per employee for about a year. The space bars, because you shot with the space.
Yeah, that's right, with the space bar. Yeah.
So
why don't we go to what they're doing now, Kyle?
Yeah, exactly.
We've got about 8 minutes left.
Yeah. So talk about what do you remember from those days? But like, what did you carry forward? So it's been 25 years, right? Or 20 on a good day. What did you carry forward from those days, and like how has being a part of those early times, like how's it affected what you do today? But what did you bring forward, and what are you doing today?
Benyo.
So this will sound a little bit immodest, but one of the things I took from that is I now look at every problem, and both business and domestic, from hopefully a creative point of view. There's always a solution. There's always a way to do it, and don't do it the way you did it yesterday. Try to find a different way to do that. One of the events that stuck with me, still sticks to me today. I remember finding myself in a movie theater audience, and some guy said, "You know what? We're going to teach you guys how to juggle. We're going to teach the entire room how to juggle." And I'm like, "What the hell is he talking about?" And this strange guy actually figured out a way, came out a creative way for us all to juggle. And that incident has stuck with me for many years. Just amazing, the creativity, the community feel, the teamwork, the spirit. That to me was just an amazing moment, and part of my agency journey.
Wow, super cool.
What about you, Richard? I know you went off. You worked with Tom Lanzetta for a while, didn't you?
So for a couple of years,
you went to London first, because I remember seeing you in London, right?
Yeah, for a couple of years afterwards, agency kept asking me to come back to help running the London and I guess Amsterdam office at one time.
That's right.
So yeah, then I started working with Andy, quite a bit again. Became a cricket fan.
Don't bring that up.
Oh no, we need to at the end. I need to know what Richard's prediction is going to be. But
and then for around 2007, actually, Tom Lanzetta recruited me to work for an online media company.
It's a precision marketing company or something, right?
Where Kyle, you'll appreciate this. The private equity investors in that company were trying to do a roll up of a bunch of other different companies, and this private equity firm the principal was Kevin Rowe, and the owner of the private equity firm was Terry Gronke.
Oh wow! So that was Lake Capital.
Yes, that was Lake Capital. So they brought me in, and I ended up spending like five years there.
Wow.
What happened to the company?
Well, in the continuing, tell me if this sounds familiar. When it grew like a rocket ship after the roll up of these 5 different companies, and within 3 or 4 years started going way down, and eventually it was like a mere shell of itself, and straddled along for a few more years after I eventually left. So yeah, that was all history repeating itself with Tom all over again, and Kevin, and then. Putzed around for a little bit, doing projects for Benyo here and there, and then I joined Tough Mudder. So
Tough Mudder is the guys who do this whole weekend thing and the mud and all this sort of thing. Isn't that what it is, right?
That's it.
Wow. And what's your role there?
The head of technology.
Look at that.
Nice.
That's his roots. No, obviously Jerry's going to be the new creative director shortly. So
exactly.
And Kyle, you had asked what we took away. This is going to sound maybe a little bit obscure, but something that I've used over and over again is I forgot his name. We hired someone from Disney.
Oh, Michael Maines.
Yes.
Yeah, to be head of creative for North America or whatever. And he drew this metaphor where websites are amusement parks. And you want to be welcoming, you want to have good navigation, you want people to find what they want and feel safe and all these other things. And I thought this was an incredibly powerful metaphor. We use it all the time, but it's not just websites. Almost every application I've built or been involved with since then, I've used some variation of that metaphor, which is, what kind of visitors are there going to be? Do we have different kinds of visitors? What are they going to want to do, et cetera? And just that user focus I've used over and over again. So I know it's kind of small and obscure, but every time that happens, I think back to agency.com. So several times a year, I think back to agency.com just because of that amusement park metaphor.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
I'd forgotten about Michael Maines. I had completely forgot about Michael. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, terrific. Well, gentlemen,
Jerry, hang on, Jerry. What are you doing nowadays?
Oh, yeah,
After
Jerry.
agency, Jerry, you went with who was it who created? What was it? Clock Tower or something?
Clock 4. So
Clock 4. Yeah.
When things wound down at agency, and I give Yuri, who was managing New York office at the time, great credit for
Yuri Sotnikov, right?
Yeah, having me sign the paperwork to get so that when they called me 2 weeks later to come back as a contractor, we were all ready to go. So I hung around there for a while, but a couple of ex-ACOMers started up a company called Clock 4, which ended up focusing on B2B web work mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got bought. So I was there kind of ever since, basically as a coder, just back to being being a programmer. And so we got bought by Hero Digital.
All right.
And we now have an office walking distance from the old Woodbridge office.
That's great.
I mean, literally, we're the other side of Route 1.
It's deja vu all over again. Look at that.
So
who's there with you? So you mentioned Pete. Who else was there for me?
So Pete Brown.
Yeah.
Jerry Arbona, who was one of the principals of Clock 4.
Yep.
Darren Zimmerman.
Oh, right.
Barry Goldberg.
Wow.
And Dave Janowski just joined us.
Really?
Yeah.
Putting the band back to the don't bring Benyo back.
Yeah.
Wherever
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
And what does Hero Digital do? Is it web stuff still?
Pardon?
Is Hero Digital doing web stuff?
We're pretty much it's web focused. We're a digital agent, pure digital agency.
Okay.
But a lot of Adobe AEM and that sort of stuff.
Interesting.
Also, but basically, end-to-end digital is the main focus.
So nothing's changed. You're basically still working at agency.com.
I don't manage that money, which is fine by me.
And Benyo, you got fingers in so many pies. I didn't know you had fingers, right?
I've run out of them. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm in a lot of different things. I've done about 8 different startups. I've worked as CTO for the New York City Marathon. I've done visual effects, surprisingly enough. So
wow.
My credits on a couple of minor movies. What was it? Spider-Man: Homecoming, Black Panther.
That sounds mighty creative all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
trying to live it down. But these days I make a living auctioning off memorabilia. So for a limited time only, we still have.
Oh,
wow.
Fantastic mouse pads, limited quantities. Telephones are open. They're going for $4.99 each. That's $499 each.
Yeah.
And then one of our rare oddities. Let's see if you guys can figure what this is from. Can we zoom in on that?
Oh, 7 Peaks.
7 Peaks. Anybody remember this?
Calling Kevin Rowe.
You have to bring up the 7 Peaks.
The 7 Peaks
process. So
Days sales outstanding.
Yep, fine vintage.
That's beautiful.
Do call in soon.
Wow,
amazing! Absolutely incredible. I think I still have downstairs in one of the boxes the 7 Peaks notepad.
Oh God,
that was foisted upon us. Yeah.
Well, you have the 7 Peaks. I have the 6 Principles of Great Work fold-up cube.
Oh my God!
Still in its original packaging.
Wow.
So
who came up with flexitecture?
That was Tim Apnell, I think.
Tim Apnell. Yeah, Tim Apnell.
I think he still might be talking about flexitecture.
Claim to fame.
Yeah.
So
TM.
sign off, folks.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you, Jerry. So good to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Jerry. Great to see you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock. All right, guys. It was so good to see you guys. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.